A pleasant good morning to everyone, especially to our dear teacher, Madam Joan. At this point of time, I, Mr. Masaki Kaput, together with Mr. Ariel Madronero and Sir Richmond Abriel Santos, will be discussing the chapter 9 that is all about social networks. For my topic, we'll be learning what social network is, and it's all about a pattern set of relationship between two or more people. In the attached diagram, we can see what comprise these said networks. It is actually the individuals, groups, organizations like that, or super organizations. And as we can see, it is represented by the circles. They are called actors, as it includes all possible types of information or knowledge processing entities. They are also called actors, as there is an interaction among one group to other groups, as signified by the arrows. Now, according to the book, the mapping and measuring of relationship in flows among people, groups, and the other actors are called social network analysis. Again, we can see in the diagram a connection of different actors, and as we can observe, a relationship as represented by lines. This is what we call network ties. So speaking of ties, we have what we call direct ties and indirect ties. As an example, in my status as a businessman, for all those years of transacting to my direct product suppliers, I can say they are my direct ties. So how about indirect ties? Since my suppliers have product providers, like the factory, whether local or international, they are called my indirect ties. So in this case, according to our book, I serve as the node to my close ties, which are my direct suppliers, and then those who supply my suppliers are still my ties, but it is not my direct ties, but they will serve as my network ties. So we have a key feature of social networks and are as follows. Number one is the network size, wherein it would be the number of actors. Second is the centrality, which is the middleman, wherein it connects one actor to the other actor. And then the density, that reflects how many people in a network are directly connected to each other. We have 5 types of social networks as the following. Communication network is the number one, wherein it is the informal structure of an organization as represented in ongoing patterns of interaction, either in general or with respect to a given issue. Second is the information network. It shows who goes to whom for advice on work-related matters. I should say. Problem solving is number 3. This indicates who goes to whom to engage in dialogue that helps people solve problems at work. And number 4 is the knowledge network, wherein this captures who is aware of those knowledge and skills. And then the number 5 is the access network, that shows who has the access to whose knowledge and expertise. We also have 5 key dimensions of work quality and can also be taken into account with social networks. Number 1 is the activity, wherein it will determine how active a person is in the network. Second is control, wherein this will measure how much a person has over the flow of information. Number 3 is the access, wherein it tells us how easily a person in the network can get the resources that he or she needs to be successful in the organization. And then number 4 is the influence, that shows how much potential influence a person wields in the network. And lastly, the power, that tells us how can someone be able to get things done. So how managers can use social networks to create value? There are 3 fundamental principles of social network theory that help us see how social networks create value in our career and within and across organizations. So number 1 is the principle of reciprocity, which simply refers to the degree to which we trade favors with others. Number 2 is the principle of exchange, wherein there may be a greater opportunity to trading favors. And then the number 3 is that it is the principle of similarity, This is more likely when an individual may be dependent on a handful of people with common interests. So, social networks and careers. There are two things to discuss in here according to the findings of Mark Granovetter, who is a sociologist. That according to him, in finding a career, there is what we call strong ties and the weak tie. That in his study, he found out that job seekers are more likely to find a job through weak ties than through strong ties. The reason is that because in the strong tie, they only tend to know the same things, while in the weak tie, it did serve as a bridging tie or a strong bridge in finding a career. How social networks create value in across organizations. There are three examples that is outlined in the book. Number one is the making invisible work visible, and second is the connect and develop, and lastly the third one is innovation and network. So Mr. Ariel will continue this report. Thank you very much.
Ethical considerations with social network analysis. What is social network analysis? Social networking is built on the idea that there is a determinable structure to how people know each other, whether directly or indirectly. Social network analysis, or SNA, is the mapping and measuring of relationships and flows between people, groups, organizations, computers, websites, and other information or knowledge processing entities. This can be done with paper and pencil surveys, software programs, and even comparing email and phone logs, but the desired output is essentially the same. Social networks are the invisible organization. That is, they are the actual organization behind the printed organization chart. So what harm can there be if a manager uses SNA to uncover the invisible structure in their organization? The three top ethical concerns are violation of privacy, psychological harm, and harm to individual standing. Let's look at each of these three ethical concerns. Violation of privacy. Managers typically use surveys, sometimes with the aid of consultants, to capture and map the structure of a social network. If each employee has consented to the survey, then the manager is on much more solid ground. Care must be taken, however, that participants are aware of the survey's objectives and applications. If a communication network in your organization is being mapped, you might be asked who you initiate communication with and who initiates it with you. You might also be asked for some indication of communication frequency. So, even if you agreed to complete the survey, the other people that you identify as part of your network may have not. Surveys are not the only basis for mapping social networks. Given technology today, this data could be readily converted into a social network map showing who corresponded with whom and the length of such correspondence. This type of social network mapping has more obvious ethical implications because participants of the map may never know that they are actually being mapped. In both the survey-based and electronic mapping approaches, you might keep the identities of individuals confidential, thereby protecting their privacy. However, it may be possible to guess the names of individuals by virtue of their location in the network. Harm to individual standing. The two remaining ethical issues are somewhat related. As you can imagine from the previous examples, violation of privacy might lead to unforeseen and possibly unwarranted disciplinary action. This would harm an individual's standing. For instance, if a social network map revealed that one individual or an entire department is the bottleneck for information flowing from one part of the organization to another, action might be taken against that individual or members of the department. It may truly be the case that this person or department is a roadblock to progress, but it may just as likely be the case that managers on one side or the other of the apparent bottleneck are not very good at delegating or eliciting information. Similarly, the organization may just be trying to run too much through one particular individual in the network. What one views as an indication of individual competency may in fact be a need for training for the addition of staff to move the information more effectively. The purpose of the network analysis maybe to identify areas of the firm that just aren't critical to its mission, vision, and strategy. This introduces dangers for the respondents because management may make job or personnel changes based on the network analysis. One of the roles of management is to determine the efficient and effective allocation of resources. SNA can be a useful tool in this determination, but the purpose of the analysis should be made clear to participants. Psychological harm. Psychological harm might arise when information is used in a way that manipulates the behavior of individuals. For instance, managers are likely to develop maps of social networks because their managers believe that there might be better ways of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. SNA in this context is explicitly part of a transformation process in which the group is shown data about itself, such as network diagrams, and asked to react to it. Experience suggests that the technique serves as a powerful catalyst for change. It is dangerous, however, because of the powerful emotions it engenders in a group setting, and this can put the researcher in the position of practicing therapy without a license. Personal, operational, and strategic networks. Personal networking engages kindred spirits from outside an organization in an individual's efforts to learn and find opportunities for personal advancement. Personal networks are one circle of casual acquaintances, typically composed of people outside of the company you work for. Before you have a job in a particular company, many of your network ties are personal, oriented toward current interests and future potential interests. Key contacts are typically discretionary, that is, it is not always clear who is most relevant. Most personal networks are highly clustered, that is, your friends are likely to be friends with one another as well, and if you made those friends by introducing yourself to them, the chances are high that their experiences and perspectives echo your own. Ideas generated within a personal network typically circulate among the same people with shared views. But what if someone within that cluster knows someone else who belongs to a whole different group? That connection, formed by an information broker, can expose your idea to a new world filled with fresh opportunities for success. Diversity and breadth, that is, reaching out to contacts who can make referrals, makes the difference. Through professional associations, alumni groups, clubs, and personal interest communities, managers gain new perspectives that allow them to advance in their careers. This is what we mean by personal networking. While personal networks are important, particularly to the extent that they provide you with valuable resources and access to needed resources, the challenge is to convert them into network resources that also help with operational and strategic needs. Too often, however, those individuals in the personal network just aren't the right types of ties to be beneficial operationally or strategically, which is why you need to look at broadening your network to address operating and strategic needs. Operational networks. Operational networking was geared toward doing one's assigned tasks more effectively. It involves cultivating stronger relationships with colleagues whose members in the network is clear. Their roles define them as stakeholders. The previous quote provides you with a good working definition of operational network. Either you're necessary to the job and helping get it done, or you're not. That is, anyone who satisfies this criterion should be considered part of your operational network. So, now you have two networking bases covered. At least you know how to identify the gaps in your personal and operational network. Your personal network provides access to external resources and referrals. Your operational network helps you get the work done. Thus, most operational networking occurs with an organization, and ties are determined in large part by routine, short-term demands. Relationships formed with outsiders, such as board members, customers, and regulators, are directly task-related and tend to be bounded and constrained by demands determined at a higher level. But as a manager moves into a leadership role, his or her network must reorient itself externally and toward the future. This is the role played by strategic networking. Strategic networks. Whereas an operational network is fairly narrowly focused, A strategic network necessarily involves lateral and vertical ties to stakeholders inside and outside of the firm. Strategic networking is the ability to marshal information, support, and resources from one sector of a network to achieve results in another. Pushed to its logical limit, the basis of this difference is that effective leaders are highly dependent on others to get things done. The irony here is that the individuals in your network who are the lifeline for building up the big picture are also individuals who are likely to be outside of your immediate control. While this may seem obvious, it is difficult to transition from a purely operational network to a strategic one, either due to simple time constraints or because of negative personal attitudes towards strategic networking.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will be reporting mapping and your own social network. In this section, you will learn the basics of mapping your own social network. It will give you a sense of the size of your network, along with some other useful characteristics to work with. Step 1. What purpose should the network serve? First, a communication network is the informal structure of an organization as represented in ongoing patterns of interaction, either in general or with respect to a given issue. Second, an information network shows who goes to whom for advice on work-related matters. Third, a problem-solving network indicates who goes to whom to engage in dialogue that helps people solve problems at work. Fourth, a knowledge network captures who is aware of whose knowledge and skills, and an access network shows who has access to whose knowledge and expertise. The sixth and final purpose is a career network, which reflects those individuals in your network who are likely to be helpful in your search for a new job or request for a promotion. Given that you are reading a Principles of Management book, career network may be the most interesting to you. Step 2. Who are your contacts and what is your relationship with them? A career network is simply those individuals who might be instrumental in helping you secure a new job or promotion. The list can be as long or as short as you want to make it. Though keep in mind that there is probably a limit to how effectively you can maintain a large network, where you expect each relationship to be strong and meaningful, or at least one where the contact would probably respond to your request for assistance. This may have been for bouncing around ideas for important projects, getting support or cooperation for your initiatives, evaluating opportunities, or any other matters of importance to you. Consider people who have provided leads, made introductions, offered an advice in your decision making, or provided resources. List those people who have contributed most significantly to your professional development and career advancement during the past 2 to 3 years. Step 3. Who knows whom? The advantage of having people in your network who know one another is that they are likely to communicate more frequently and provide a set of shared relationships that you can use to move information, ideas, and other resources forward. Also, if any one of your network members who knows no one else in the network leaves the network for some reason, you will no longer have access to the stuff he or she provided for you. Step 4. Assess and take action. When entering a new position, effective managers identify the people on whom they depend for getting things done and focus their energies on cultivating relationships with those people. Effective managers consider others as potential allies, even when they may appear to be adversaries. They develop awareness of key goals and resources valued by the potential ally and attempt to find areas of mutual benefit. Relationships with people who are dissimilar on multiple dimensions are the most difficult to cultivate and therefore require the most explicit strategies. Effective managers tend to be keenly aware of their personal preferences and interaction styles for developing their network. For example, those who are not comfortable with extracurricular socializing may make extra time for informal conversations at work. As a group, we choose this scripture of Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 9 to 12. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls, when there is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can be warm alone? Our explanation is this. The scripture translates to teamwork. The word teamwork is defined to the cooperation of two or more people working together to achieve a goal. It is very important value in my field of work in construction industry. Teamwork is very essential for the success of any project. Teamwork helps to reduce the cost and time for any project by reducing the number of people required for a project. It also increases efficiency and productivity by reducing mistakes. It also improves communication between all members of the team because they are working together. Lastly, teamwork can help us to achieve our goals faster than doing it alone. Because when we work as a team, more knowledge will be shared and problems will be solved easily. Thank you for listening.